She hadn't moved in hours. The energy cuffs dug into her wrists, cold and humming with containment static. Around her, the sounds of metallic boots echoed. Alien laughter. Guttural. Mocking. She still thinks she's dangerous. One of them sneered in imperial tongue, tapping on the reinforced glass of her containment cell. Barely a step above an animal. What's she going to do? Glare us to death? She didn't respond. Her eyes stayed locked forward, unmoving. That silence seemed to irritate them more than words ever could. Another guard snorted. They cry when you put the pain rods to their spines. They all cry. Their minds are too fragile. No resilience. One leaned down to her level, staring through the transparent shield. His skin was iridescent green, 3 vertical pupils flickering with amusement. Speak, human. Give us another quote about your species' so-called spirit. Or have you realized yet? You don't matter? She blinked once. The taunts didn't stop. You're not warriors. You meet evolved monkeys. You think your tiny world means anything in a galactic empire 1,000 millennia older than your first spark of fire? Still silence. Another plate of gruel slid through the cell's feeding slot. Sloppy, gray paste. Nutritionally adequate. Demeaning by design. She didn't look at it. Doesn't even eat, the tall one scoffed. Trying to die noble. Like it changes anything. They left. She remained still. But she was listening. Calculating. Every vibration of a hallway. Every footstep. The changing guard schedules. The precise length of time it took for the surveillance orb to cycle past her door. They thought she was meditating on surrender. She was measuring. The cell light buzzed above her. Weak power fluctuations, nearly imperceptible. But to her, it was a whisper. A flaw. A crack. She stared at her hands. Scarred knuckles. Fractured 3 times during combat trials. She could still recall the instructor's voice. You break your bones. You learn what they're made for. She had. And she kept going. Her ribs still ached from the last interrogation. They'd used phase shocks this time. More efficient, less blood. Didn't leave marks. But her muscles still remembered the voltage. What they didn't understand, what they never understood, was what pain meant to humans. Pain wasn't the end. It was a signal. A reminder. They didn't know about the Gene Boost program. About the experimental trial she had volunteered for back on the orbital station above Titan. They didn't know what Earth had become after the invasion attempt. What desperation forged in a species when they stood on extinction's edge and chose to claw their way back. They didn't ask why no other test subjects survived Phase 4 activation. They assumed she was just another prisoner. One among many. Replaceable. Contained. They didn't know the cost of what she carried inside. Her vision flickered momentarily, barely noticeable. A pulse in her retina. Internal systems adjusting to stress. Reaction time recalibrated. Neural acceleration creeping upward. She closed her eyes. Focused on her heartbeat. Slower than it should be. Calmer than expected. They thought containment meant stillness. They had no idea it was the calm before ignition. The memory surfaced again without permission. Her brother's blood on her hands. His body beneath the rubble of the new Boston perimeter. His voice, ragged, whispering through the comms. Don't let them define us. Not like this. And then static. She hadn't cried. There wasn't time for tears when the war was still being fought one breath at a time. Another group passed the hallway outside. Laughter again. One of them mentioned the word auction. Another said breeding stock. Someone joked about how fragile humans were. One stomped on the metal panel outside her door just to see if she'd flinch. She didn't. They walked away, still laughing. Her fingers twitched. The energy cuffs sparked faintly, tiny, inconsistent pulses. Her internal biofield had begun interacting with the collar's emitter. It wasn't supposed to happen. Their tech assumed passive biology. They hadn't planned for her. 3 more hours passed. Then came the voice of the High Inquisitor. Calm, slow, condescending. Your defiance is admirable in theory. But time erodes all stubbornness. You'll beg, eventually. They always do. This facility is timeless. You are not. She looked at him for the first time. Just once. No smile. No rage. Just a stare that said one thing. You've already made your mistake. He didn't recognize it. That was fine. She leaned back against the wall again. The cuffs didn't tighten. They couldn't. Her pulse rate had dropped beneath detection range. Her temperature regulation bypassed external monitors. The systems didn't recognize the threat because they were never built to measure what couldn't be quantified. Intent. Her breath slowed further. The cracks were already forming, not on the walls, in the assumptions. And when those assumptions broke, so would the door. The cold of the cell didn't touch her, not because it wasn't real, but because she'd endured worse. Her body remembered the open-air camps in the Siberian collapse, the acidic rains during the terraforming siege on Mars. Hunger sharp enough to blur vision, cold sharp enough to splinter skin. This was nothing. Pain, deprivation, humiliation, they were just recycled experiences. The Empire thought they were inventing suffering. Humanity had been born in it. She rolled her wrist subtly. The bruising was deep, but the swelling had gone down. Bone was intact, nerve function responsive. The cuffs hadn't noticed the micro-adjustments in her muscle tension. She knew exactly how far her current range of motion extended. She was mapping it with every breath. Not for escape yet, not for show, just to confirm what she'd always known. She was still alive. The memories bled through in ordered fragments, not weakness but resolve. Her mother's last look before boarding the evacuation vessel from Earth. The city had been on fire behind her, skyscrapers collapsing like paper in the orbital strike. Her mother had said nothing. She had just handed over the family emblem, nodded once, and turned toward the flames. That silence said everything. She'd kept that emblem hidden in her boot during every op, every drop, every crawl through ash fields and bone pits. Even now, the guards hadn't found it. They never searched thoroughly. She was a prisoner, after all, not a threat. They always underestimated quiet humans. The first activation sequence had started long before capture. Experimental biocode woven into her DNA, courtesy of Earth's last desperation weapon, Project SOVR. Survivors optimized for violent response. Most test subjects died in the first stage. A few made it to the third. She was the only one who completed stage 5. That didn't mean perfection. It meant permanence. There was no off switch. They thought they'd caught a soldier. They caught the prototype. Her body was changing. Slowly. Quietly. The Empire's medical scans were too primitive to notice molecular phase shifts in human protein chains. They hadn't seen the intracellular repairs underway. The skin regenerating faster. The nerve endings sharpening, not dulling. She'd held back during capture. Let them take her. Let them chain her. Earth Command had gone dark months earlier, but her mission hadn't. She was always the contingency plan. The sleeper vector if infiltration failed. And now she was here, right where Earth needed her most, in the core of their beast. They thought mocking her would break her, that the jokes about humans being pet-tier intellects would fracture something vital. That pain would do what their weapons couldn't. But her kind didn't shatter from pressure. They ignited. Her mind stayed razor-focused. She cataloged every insult, logged each voice, timed the patrol patterns, energy fluctuations, and door resets. If she couldn't punch her way out now, she'd wait. Let the biofield settle. Let the cellular enhancement finish maturing. Let the organism inside her come fully online. She thought about Ellis, her squad mate, killed during the breach raid on Vec 3, not from enemy fire. He stayed behind to detonate the gate so she could escape. She remembered the last words he said before the blast. When it's time, make it count. She hadn't cried then either. That mission had failed. They'd lost Vec 3, but they'd killed a warship in orbit. With homemade bombs. With scrap. That was humanity's gift. The ability to weaponize desperation. That's what the Empire didn't understand. They had drones, fleets, and bioplasma. Humanity had nothing but memory, and memory was fuel. It burned slow, deep, and forever. Her heart rate increased, not from emotion, but from shift. The upgrade sequence had reached the cardiovascular layer. Blood oxygenation spiked. Reflexes would follow next. Then tendon reinforcement. Her hands would be strong enough to tear synth steel within hours. She looked at the wall, watched the camera orb swivel again. Its pattern never changed. 31 seconds per sweep. Every fourth pass, a glitch made it stutter. A tiny window, but enough. She only needed one. They thought she was sitting still. But stillness was training. Stillness was patience. They didn't realize they weren't watching a captive. They were watching a countdown. The Empire liked to label things. Species, castes, prisoners. They'd labeled her Unit 6, non-compliant female. That label would be on every report, every scan, every log. They'd never write her real name. But soon they'd remember it. Not because she told them. Not because she shouted. Because when she stood, when she moved, when she finally broke the illusion of weakness, they'd realize what they were really dealing with. Not a woman. Not a test subject. Not a prisoner. A warning. The floor vibrated subtly beneath her feet. Not from footsteps. From systems. Engines cycling. Shields powering up. The facility had moved to high alert, but not because of her. Not yet. Somewhere else in the complex, there was an incident. A fire. A failure. Something small. A distraction. That was all she needed. Her pulse spiked once, then steadied. The cuffs on her wrist sparked faintly, recognizing something they weren't programmed to handle. Internal feedback surged. Circuits misread the current as a shutdown. They disengaged for safety. They fell to the floor. She stood. No warning sirens. No alert klaxons. The system hadn't registered a threat. It didn't understand the parameters. No one had. She reached forward, fingers curling around the reinforced synth bar of the cell door. It hissed beneath her touch. Not from heat. From pressure. Metal compressed. Groaned. Then bent. Her eyes didn't blink. The door tore free in a single motion. No sound but the sudden scream of sheared steel. She tossed it aside. It struck the far wall with a crash that echoed like a thunderclap. The silence after was immediate. Then came shouts. Heavy boots. Panic. First guard turned the corner, plasma rifle raised. She was already in motion. His weapon fired. She moved past the bolt, grabbed his neck, twisted. His body dropped before he understood what had happened. Second guard aimed. Too slow. She snapped his weapon in half and drove the broken piece into his chest. Pulled it free. Tossed it down the hallway. 3 more appeared. She didn't stop. One swing shattered a helmet. One elbow broke a spine. One step sent shockwaves through the floor as she launched from the wall and crashed into the last with enough force to cave the panel behind him. No words. No war cry. Just movement. Direct, brutal, unstoppable. She grabbed a comm link from the nearest corpse. Clipped it to her belt. Tuned the frequency manually. Static. Voices. Imperial code chatter. Containment breach. Unknown asset. Multiple casualties. She walked. A drone dropped from the ceiling, auto turret spinning. She ripped a panel from the wall and hurled it. Crushed the drone midair. Kept walking. At the corridor junction, a defense unit tried to seal the hallway. Emergency shield rose up. She stepped through it. The energy barrier flared as it hit her, tried to stop her. Failed. Her body pulsed once. Biochemical systems overriding electromagnetic resistance. The shield collapsed. Alarms now. Full lockdown. Sector 9 compromised. Engage lethal containment. She reached the central shaft. 3 stories down, the security mainframe. She could feel the systems through the floor like heat signatures. That's where control lived. And that's where she'd cut the head off. No time for subtlety. She ran. Leapt. Dropped 2 floors straight down. Landed in a crouch and surged forward. Security bots waited at the core entrance. 12 of them, programmed to deal with uprisings. She didn't slow down. 2 came first. She dodged, twisted between them, grabbed one, and used it to slam the other into the wall. Another fired a pulse cannon. She caught the shot with her arm, skidded back, then launched herself forward with the recoil. Drove her knee into its chassis. Ripped its head free. A bot tackled her from behind. She flipped it, smashed it against the floor until it stopped moving. She fought with precision. No wasted motion, no hesitation. Not fury. Control. For more bots circled her. She waited. Let them move. Then she struck, faster than sensors could track. A blur of limbs and shattered steel. One by one, they fell. Final bot tried to retreat. She dragged it back by the leg and crushed its power core at her palm. Silence again. She stepped over wreckage, approached the security terminal, placed the comm link beside it, accessed the system. Familiar code structures. Their arrogance made them predictable. She bypassed protocols, rewrote access privileges, opened every human cell across the facility. Protocol override complete, the system said. Then she activated the emergency broadcast system, looked into the embedded lens. This is not a negotiation. Her voice echoed through every floor. To the prisoners, you are no longer confined. To the guards, your reign is over. To the Empire, you should not have tested us. She turned off the broadcast. Security override gave her access to the schematic. She memorized it. Every exit, every checkpoint, every power node. The next phase wasn't escape. It was disruption. She wasn't leaving a message. She was becoming one. The lights flickered overhead as she moved deeper into the command level. Smoke from destroyed drones hung in the air like a warning. Every step echoed with the weight of finality. Resistance came in waves, but none lasted more than a few seconds. The guards weren't prepared. Not for her. Not for what she represented. They fired in bursts, shouted commands, hid behind cover. It didn't matter. She advanced through everything. Her path was straight, her purpose clear. The command chamber stood ahead, sealed behind blast doors. Standard alloy, dense enough to stop plasma. She planted her hands on the surface and pushed. No build-up, no dramatic pause. The metal shrieked, bent, then folded in like paper. She stepped through the wreckage into silence. Inside, officers froze. A handful reached for weapons. One got a shot off. It bounced off her shoulder. The others hesitated too long. She disarmed them in seconds, one after another, disabling instead of killing. She needed them conscious. At the center of the room, the ranking commander backed away, his ornate armor trembling with every step. His voice cracked. "You're making a mistake. You won't make it out of this facility alive." She said nothing. He pointed at her. "You think you've won something here? You're still surrounded by Empire territory. You're still a human. Nothing more." Her hand closed around the command console. With a single motion, she ripped the interface from its housing and tossed it at his feet. Sparks showered the room. "I know exactly what I am," she said. She reached over to the primary transmission controls, accessed the secure fleet channel. Her fingers moved quickly, overriding security, initiating a live signal to all connected Imperial systems within range. "Attention all listening outposts," she said, her voice cold and steady. "This is a message from Earth. The prisoner you mocked, tortured, and dismissed was never alone. She was a test, a prototype, a warning." She stared into the lens. "Remember what you see here. Not because you fear me, but because you won't see it coming next time. We are not extinct. We are not broken. We are evolving. And we remember everything." She cut the signal. Behind her, one of the officers groaned, trying to crawl away. She walked over, knelt, and lifted him by the collar. "How many human prisoners are held across your colonies?" I don't know." She squeezed just enough to remind him. "Estimate. Hundreds, maybe thousands. Some unregistered. They don't keep proper files anymore." She dropped him, turned back to the console. She typed commands rapidly, linking all detention sectors together under a single override. Doors opening. Systems crashing. The entire prison network lit up with red alerts. "All cells across the grid are unlocked," said the system voice. That was the objective. Not just escape. Contagion. She rerouted power from the facility core to overload the upper shield domes. Failsafes kicked in. She bypassed them. The system sputtered a last protest before the fusion matrix began to redline. She activated the countdown. 3 minutes. She moved quickly through the halls, now filled with prisoners flooding out, human and otherwise. Some looked at her in shock. Others cheered. Some followed. She gave no commands. Didn't slow. They weren't her mission. Their freedom was the byproduct of her existence. She reached the hangar. One of the smaller transports sat prepped, engines hot. She approached the controls. No security code. The panic had cleared the system. She climbed aboard, started the sequence, and powered up. The walls shook. First internal explosions, then energy feedback. Then the power grid started eating itself alive. She guided the ship upward, smashing through the half-lowered shield barrier. As she cleared the upper atmosphere, she looked back once. The facility below collapsed inward as the final charge detonated. A flash of white light, then darkness. She opened the encrypted comms system on the stolen ship and transmitted a ping. Old Earth code. A beacon. If any listening post remained active, they'd hear it. And they'd know. The mission was complete. She didn't smile. There was too much work ahead for that. But in her silence, there was something else. The quiet certainty that they would never forget her name again. And that was enough.